Hello and welcome aboard the cockpit of the A-18 Hornet. We are continuing to work on the flight school campaign I've been developing for this aircraft. We are starting Block 2, which is the air-to-ground training. We're basically just playing through the campaign to make sure that it advances as it's intended. So, as always, we're going to be doing this in semi-real time. Anytime there's narration, we're going to sit and listen to that just to make sure that everything's working as it's supposed to. But in between, we'll do some time compression to get through this as quickly as we can.
Great work getting through the navigation block of the training. Now that we know how to get where we're going, it's time to get to the fun part. A couple of notes to start with. First, you won't have to enter waypoints anymore, as you've proven you know how, and it's faster to just have them loaded to begin with. Second, in the same spirit, we'll start the missions with the aircraft turned on and ready to go, so no more startups required. As satisfying as it is to drop bombs on targets, the ability to do so is useless if we're unable to get to the target area. Situational awareness is a critical component of flying the Hornet, primarily because even if there are no enemy fighters in the air to attack you, you're not necessarily safe. Most targets worthy of bombing will likely have some kind of air defense intended to shoot down attacking aircraft. For this flight, we're going to learn the first part of detecting and evading air defenses, then RTB, and practice our Case 1 recovery. Before we can do any of that, though, we need to get some ordnance on the aircraft. While many missions will have your aircraft pre-equipped with the recommended loadout, others will not, so it's important for you to become familiar with the refuel/rearm interface so you can ensure you're properly armed for each mission. To access the interface, you can either press the appropriate keybind or contact your ground crew via the COM menu and request refuel/rearm. This is the ordnance page where we can set up our aircraft for the mission. The right side of the screen allows you to set up fuel, gun ammo, and chaff/flare quantities, as well as preset ordnance loadouts and liveries for the Hornet. On the left under the image of the aircraft is where you can manually select weapons for each station, which is numbered from right to left. Each station has certain weapons or equipment that can be loaded. Stations 1 and 9 are on
We're not going to sit through this entire block here. He basically just explains what each of the pylons are for, and then has us put two 500-pound bombs on Station 3 and 7 and see that down here. So we're just going to go ahead and get
We have the weapons loaded, but by default they're in an unusable condition to prevent I
forgot. Okay, air-ground mode.
Select the J-82 push button along the top to select the weapon, which will box it. A timer will appear on the screen, which is an indicator that the weapon is being aligned for use. Once it reaches 7:30, it will be good enough for government work. A full perfect alignment can take up to 10 minutes. Be advised that if you deselect the weapon, the countdown will stop and you'll have to start over before you can use it. This is important to remember because you'll always need to be sure to have plenty of time for the weapon to align before using it. The alignment will continue even if you select other weapons, but be sure to not specifically deselect the weapon or it will shut down and the alignment process will have to restart. The first thing we need to do is be sure we arm all the warhead fuses. Dropping bombs that don't explode sort of defeats the purpose, so we're going to use the only option available for this device, the E-fuse. Press the push button for it and select instant. Setting up our first target is extremely easy, so let's do that now. The station you currently have selected will be boxed, and you can switch between them using the step function. If you're not already, step over to Station 7, the right station, then press the mode button to put it in target of opportunity, TOO, mode. Once that's done, on another MDI, select the HSI page, then advance to waypoint 2 and press the waypoint designate, WPDSG, button to assign waypoint 2 as the weapon's target. That's it, just a couple of button presses and it's done. Of course, you'll almost always have additional targets nearby your assigned target waypoint, so we'll need to be able to take care of them as well. This is where the GPS data entry we practiced comes in. Step to Station 3 and verify it's in pre-planned, PP, mode, then press the JDAM display button on the top right. To the left will appear the Release Type button, which provides options for the different weapon release types. Select Manual, and then look for the Mission button above it. At the top of this screen, you'll see 5 options which correspond to separate mission profiles you can program into the computer. In general, you're only going to use one, but just be aware that these profiles provide you with extensive flexibility. For now, just press the TGTUFC button to enter the target coordinates for the weapon. The data entry is a bit different for this particular application. As you can see, there are 3 options that appear. 2 you should recognize and a 3rd you won't. We can ignore the uppermost option for now. Tap the position button so we can get the coordinates put in.
Oops.
Again, this will be slightly different from entering a waypoint. You have to manually choose latitude or longitude, then enter the coordinate in as usual. Go ahead and press the LAT button, then enter the latitude provided in the briefing. Then do the same for long. The decimal screen shows up blank for this one, but just enter everything in the way you were trained. Once the coordinates are in, go back to the Stores page and tap the TGTUFC button twice to return to the UFC menu, then tap the elevation option and enter it as normal. Once all that's done, step through the 2 stations to verify that one is in TOO mode and the other is in PP mode, then press the return button at the bottom of the Stores page. Lastly, press the AG button to return to navigation mode so we can use our waypoints. Now that we're armed and dangerous, let's talk about the flight. As stated, we have 2 trucks that have been set up as practice targets, but we need to get you in the habit from the start to be looking out for the various air defense systems that will inevitably be in your way. On this flight, there will be 2 Russian SA-3 sites, each with an effective range of up to 10 miles. They have been deliberately placed so that their effective ranges fall along your flight path, meaning you'll have to manually navigate to avoid them as you make your way to waypoint 2. Let's go ahead and get into the air, climb to an altitude of 15,000 feet, and maintain an airspeed of 350 knots until instructed otherwise. When we get to waypoint 1, we'll talk about how we're going to avoid the SAM sites.
Boom. Alright, so we'll get into the air, head towards waypoint 1. There'll be some instruction over there. As I said, there will be a fair bit of time compression through all of this so that we can kind of get ourselves going. Let's get the auto throttle. Oh, hold on. Not what I was trying to do.
Okay, now that we're en route, we need to talk about the Situational Awareness, or SA page, which is located on the TAC menu. Go ahead and switch one of your MDIs to it now. This is very similar to the HSI we were using in the navigation training, but it's able to do quite a bit more than just point you in the right direction. As the name implies, it can provide you with a much more complete picture of the battlefield than your own aircraft systems can by itself. One of the most helpful parts of all this is the data link system we've been turning on during our startup procedures. Other aircraft equipped with the same system and on the same network can send us the information they're getting from their detection systems, and our data link can place that image on our SA page. This makes it an invaluable tool in keeping tabs on what potential threats might be nearby. For this lesson, there are 2 surface-to-air missile, or SAM, sites placed along our route. You should be able to see them on the SA page now. Note the large, dashed rings surrounding them. These are their threat rings, which indicate the distance at which they can engage targets. In general, your goal is to avoid these rings so you don't get shot at. Continue along the route, but do your best to keep outside the threat rings. Stay as close as you can to the course line without entering the threat rings, as our lineup for the bombing run is based on that approach. If you're too far off, you won't be able to accurately release your weapons. Once you're through and approaching waypoint 2, we'll talk about how to bomb the trucks.
Alright. So we're going to turn the couple function off so that I can maneuver around these guys. We'll leave the altitude hold on just to make sure that we stay at the altitude that we're supposed to be. Start swinging our way. So the purpose of this mission is just to kind of get new pilots used to using the SA page and seeing threat rings and learning how to maneuver, treating them as something worth, being nervous about, so that you understand how to use the system.
At this point, you should be rounding the second SAM site, so let's talk about the bombing process. GPS-guided weapons are fire and forget. As long as you did your data entry correctly, they go where you told them to go. The only thing you have to do is get yourself properly lined up and drop the weapon when the system tells you that you're in range. Fortunately, the Hornet will make this very easy. First, go ahead and apply maximum afterburner so we can get our speed as high as possible before dropping our weapons. The faster we're going, the further out we can drop them. Then turn on air to ground mode, set the master arm switch to arm, double check that you have station 7 selected on the stores page, then change your SA page to the HSI, as the indicator we need doesn't show up on the SA page. On the screen you should see a cone-shaped area just before waypoint 2. This is called the weapon engagement zone. You should notice that the zone is getting bigger. This is because we're getting faster, which increases the range of the weapon. Once you enter this area, the weapon will display an in range on the HUD, which tells you you're ready to drop the bomb on the target. You should also be able to see the target displayed on the HUD to help you fly over it, along with range information along the right side. Just fly toward the target, and once you're inside the cone and the HUD tells you that you're in range, go ahead and drop the bomb with the weapon release button. Note that this is not your trigger, as that is reserved for guns and missiles. It is usually a thumb-activated button on your stick, or you can use the keybind. The second target is close enough to the first that we can get them both on a single pass, so once you release the first one, watch for the HSI to reset and display a slightly new cone. You'll already be inside the engagement zone, so the HUD will immediately show you as in range, and you can press the weapon release a second time to engage the other truck. You would normally set your weapons up to release at the same time with a single press of the button, but TOO and pre-planned mode don't work together, and we wanted to teach you both, so for this lesson you'll have to manually drop each one. Once both weapons are away, reduce throttle to come out of afterburner and begin your egress toward waypoint 3, as since you don't need to guide the bombs in, there's no reason to overfly the targets and potentially expose yourself to anti-aircraft guns. It might take longer than you expect for the weapons to hit their targets, but assuming you entered everything correctly, there will be a couple of satisfying explosions in your near future.
Alright. And we'll... time compress through this part.
Looks like you got them. Egress to waypoint 3 for further instructions. Be sure to turn off AG mode and set your master arm switch to safe.
Okay, cool.
As we are TB, let's talk about the final piece of the Case 1 recovery, approaching the carrier. As you can imagine, carrier operations can get pretty busy, and it's important for pilots to be able to quickly and efficiently get back on the carrier with a minimum of discussion and delay. As such, there is a specific, choreographed procedure for approaching and landing on the carrier. The controlled airspace around the carrier extends to 50 miles, so as you enter that range you'll need to contact the carrier on the Marshall frequency to let them know you're inbound. They'll respond with a block of information followed by a request to report when you can see them at about 10 miles. Once you reach 10 miles, you'll confirm you can see the carrier, then inform them that you can see them with a "see you at 10" call. Marshal will respond with a directive to switch to the tower. This is done automatically in DCS. At a certain point in your approach to
I
the
realize
carrier,
this isn't the most
you'll
riveting
automatically
stuff,
report
but this
to the
is a
tower.
class, so
Once you
there
hear
needs
that
to be a
the
lot of
signal is
information.
Charlie, you're technically cleared to begin your recovery, but to ensure you understand the Marshal stack, should you be asked to use it, we're going to simulate it over the airfield. The Marshal stack is a column of airspace 5 miles in diameter directly to the left of the carrier starting at 2,000 feet where returning aircraft circle to wait for their assigned recovery time. These are generally broken up into 1,000-foot blocks, with each aircraft entering from the top and slowly making their way to the bottom as each lower level becomes available. For the purpose of just getting the idea in your head, we'll assume that the lowest block at 2,000 feet is clear and we can enter there. Open your kneeboard and look at the Case 1 traffic pattern insert. You can enter the pattern at any of these points, but you can only depart for your recovery at point 3. As you can see on the image, you'll make a wide turn to come around the stern of the carrier and then approach at 350 knots and 800-foot AGL, just like we practiced in the last block. We have no means of communicating with the airfield as if it were a carrier, so I'll just make callouts for you as you get within the ranges we discussed, just to get you used to hearing them. Once you hear me say, "See you at 10, approach the airfield and enter as close to what you judge position 1 to be as you can, then do a complete circle all the way through until you hit position 3 for a second time. This will simulate waiting in the stack, and then departing at your assigned time. Okay, we're within 50 miles, so you would contact Marshal here. It would be formatted. Marshal, your tail number, marking MOMS, bearing from carrier, at distance, your altitude, your fuel state. This is all done automatically through the comms menu. Once you're within 50 miles, you would activate your COM 1 call radio menu keybind, select the carrier, and report inbound. The carrier will respond with your tail number, visibility at carrier, weather ceiling at carrier, altimeter setting, type of recovery, expected recovery heading, BRC, and an instruction to report seeing the carrier at 10 miles. At this point, you would normally be given a Charlie time, which is the exact time you leave the pattern and begin your Case 1 recovery. DCS does not include this as part of their ATC functionality, so you won't get this for most missions unless the developer has specifically added it for custom missions.
I try not to break the fourth
Since this
wall,
training is geared for
sometimes you
general
just have
use,
to.
we won't include it here. For our practice, let's just assume you were given a Charlie time and I'll just tell you when to land. As you approach the carrier, reduce your airspeed to 250 knots, enter the Marshal stack at 2,000 feet AGL, and begin a shallow left turn that takes you about 5 miles to the left of the runway on the other side of the circle. We will provide smoke markers of the positions to help. After you've crossed the runway twice, exit the pattern at position 3, then swing around to the right of the runway to begin your Case 1 recovery.
This is why I put my hat. I have my phone in here with my head tracking thing. I have it uses the accelerometer in the phone to allow me to look around. I have a I bought the I-beam thingy or whatever. It drifts around a lot more than this. Like with this, I can more or less look straight at a thing, and it won't like drift around a lot. Even with the I-beam camera, which is better than any of the other just like face tracking stuff that I've seen so far, it still drifts around more than I'm comfortable. So the hat makes a return, and we're using the phone for looking around right now. Okay, so I don't need to. I think once we get within 20 miles, we'll start our descent. Down. I believe it said 250 knots for the turning part, so let me just double check. Yeah, 250 knots. what is the... I think it's 129, right? Oh, that's not correct. Okay, gotta go back and look at that, but I think it's 129, so, course. Okay, so that's our simulated carrier.
We're about 10 miles away from the carrier, so at this point you would radio into Marshall the phrase, "See you at 10." You'll then be directed to update state and switch to tower, which means provide your current fuel state and then switch to the tower. DCS does all that automatically when you select report "See you at 10." In solo missions, you'll immediately get a signal as Charlie call, but as stated we're going to practice the Marshall so we know how to do it. We've popped smoke over the points so you can get an idea how big the pattern is. Just fly over them and we'll proceed around the pattern. At 250 knots, a good angle of bank is between 15 and 30 degrees, but keep adjusting as necessary to fly over the markers.
Okay, so pull out some speed brake to kind of get us down to the 250 that we need to do, because as we're descending, we're having a hard time picking up speed, or bleeding off speed, so I'm just going to kind of do it this way. Right. And we'll get the auto throttle on once we're... Get the autopilot on. I'm going to do a barometric hold here for the altitude because if we do radar hold, I think it's going to make us go up and down trying to maintain a radar 2,000 feet rather than just holding us at the same altitude. So we're going to do it this way. Okay. And then I wanted my head tracking so I could look around at the smoke markers. In the next mission, we do it without the smoke markers, so I won't necessarily need it. But for this one, since it's been a bit since I've done a Marshall stack, we'll go ahead and just do it this way.
Okay, that's position 1. Complete a full 360-degree turn around the circle to return over the airfield, with your furthest distance from the airfield being about 5 miles. Maintain 2,000 feet and 250 knots.
See, this is why I wanted to be able to look around and judge my stuff, because 30 degrees was too much. I think it's supposed to be like a 30 degree turn, but maybe it is this. I don't know. I just wish the attitude hold would actually hold me at the angle that I'm trying to hold here. All right, so we'll fast forward a little bit. Yeah, so 30 degrees. I think actually was the. I don't know, it felt like it was turning too hard. So yeah, it's like halfway in between. Yeah, 30 degrees seems like it's too much. And then... Okay, so it's going to let us know that we passed back over the thing, and now we're getting ready to do the case. Now we're getting ready to do our procedure to get around. We're just getting verbal call-outs letting us know that we went over the marks that we're supposed to go over. So.
Okay, we've simulated the pattern and arriving at your designated Charlie time. Go ahead and exit the pattern and swing around to begin your Case 1 recovery. Descend to 800 feet and accelerate to 350 knots.
So you're supposed to do a wide, like you're supposed to exit the Marshall pattern and do a wide kind of swing around to get to line up to do your 800-foot pass by the carrier. Let's get ourselves up to 350 knots. Auto throttle turned on. Speed things up a little bit so we're not taking forever to get through this. Autopilots. I have learned that the Hornet has a really bad tendency to not want to let go of your autopilots unless you completely disengage the system. So if you are having an issue with trying to disable autopilot features and it just doesn't seem to want to let go, there is an autopilot paddle, whatever you want to call it, function that will completely disengage all autopilot functions except for the auto throttle. Auto throttle is separate. But it's a very useful thing to know because it's super frustrating when you're trying to turn off a function and it just will not let go of the aircraft. I've died more than once trying to do things close to the ground with the autopilot, and then it won't let go of my altitude hold or my coupling hold or like my coupled waypoint hold or something. It's like it just refuses. It says that it let go, but then it just doesn't. So just keep that in mind. Okay, and then once we pull back on the throttle, that will disengage the auto throttle. Sorry, I'm trying to focus on turning. So 310 is our number. Yeah, we're way too close. I don't know. I think I started a little bit too far to the right of the runway, and I don't know. The G's that they tell you to pull feels like it's a little much. I mean, as long as you're about a mile away from the carrier, that generally tends to work out okay, but you definitely want to have a little bit of room. Bring our altitude down a little bit as we do this. Landing gear, flaps are down. You would normally have your hook down when you're landing on the carrier, but we're not actually doing that, so. As I always do, we're going to give ourselves a little bit of extra room just because the runway isn't angled compared to the actual course of the aircraft carrier, so you got to give yourself a little bit more room to line up. Degrees, a little bit more than 30 degrees. Okay. Out a little bit. Just want to overshoot, I think. Not overshoot, but we're gonna be a little too too tight of a turn. We do need to start descending though, because I'm too high. to start braking when we get low enough. Up. Keep the ball just beyond the numbers.
Good trap.
All right, then we go park ourselves. Okay. Just gotta focus. Just gotta focus. Much prefer to do this in VR, but I need a better graphics card. Get ourselves back, shut the aircraft down, and then verify that the mission will advance to the next thing, and then we're good to go. Slow down so we don't overshoot the parking spot.
Good job. Next up will be neutralizing air defenses, so get some lunch and be back here ready to train.
Okay, should be able to quit, hit end mission, and we should see mission 2-2. There we go. All right, well, that's going to go ahead and do it for today. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. Be sure to come back for tomorrow's seed mission. Click the like button to spread the video out to more people. Subscribe to help us reach 10,000 subscribers. Join as a member for early access to videos, among other perks, or you can just leave YouTube's version of a tip with the thanks button. So again, thanks for watching. Be sure to come back tomorrow, and I'll see you then.